right. And everybody?
Good morning.
I'm hoping these batteries last the hour. I think they're starting to get a little touchy, but we'll see how it goes. I might be yelling by the end of this.
When in doubt, go
Yeah. Well, I didn't realize that they were starting to go until this morning, so. Anyhow, keep in mind that you can always, Josephine, I know I heard you talking about recording the whole thing, and I don't have a problem with that at all. But if you go on the Facebook page, you can just watch it because I'm recording it as well. Yeah. So that way you don't have to worry about your battery or anything like that. So this will be on. It's on the Facebook page live right now. So anybody that's watching out in internet land, hello. And I have, along with your questions, I did throw this out into the void yesterday in regards to questions from people that may be watching us, and I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions from people ranging from North Carolina, Los Angeles, someone from Lincoln that actually takes lessons here, Dallas, Texas, and Long Island. Did I say Long Island? Long Island as well. So we'll make a point to touch on those questions as well, along with all of the questions that you all have. But for those of you that have never been to one of these lessons before, for those of you that are watching us online, our goal in doing these lessons is to allow you to get to know your instrument a little bit better. We spend a lot of time, I know, here at the studio going over songs and how you play them, and we don't spend a lot of time going over buttons and operations. So I try to do this once a month, and I've always said that I will keep doing it until I put a buttons and tabs on the calendar and nobody shows up, and that hasn't happened ever, so I'll just keep on doing them. And I never really know what we're going to go over, so I basically leave it up to, Bert's got 6 pages of questions, he told me earlier, and so I don't know if we'll be able to answer all 6 pages, but we'll try. We'll do as many as we can, and I guess you all will choose a subject matter. So I guess we'll get going. Who'd like to start us off with a question this morning?
I actually have one.
Go ahead.
Okay, if I'm trying to do this, if I record some of the song when you play for our lessons at the end, I put that on a thing, flash drive or whatever. All right, and then I take it downstairs and I put it in my Rialto and play it on audio. Will that play as opposed to just putting it on, playing the recording? Or don't you? It won't ruin the Rialto.
Okay, so the question is in regards to a song on a thumb drive, and the Rialto as well as the Inspire has a really interesting feature on both of the instruments that allows you to both record as well as play back MP3s. And MP3s are different than the Lowry recordings. Lowry recordings, I believe, Mark, you might know this, I think they're done in MIDI. They're done in MIDI. And it's just basically a different program. MP3 is a more acceptable. It's more updated, maybe. Is I guess how I might explain it. But it is what allows you. For example, I have had students ask me, "Can you send me an email of a song or something along those lines?" Or another great reason for MP3 would be if you wanted to play along with a recording of a song that you have, you can actually put that recording on a thumb drive, meaning a professional recording. Let's say that you wanted to play along with Frank Sinatra singing Luck Be a Lady Tonight. You can have that on the thumb drive, put it in the instrument, go to audio, which is what flips the recorder into the MP3 mode, and then when you hit play, you'll hear Frank coming out of the speakers. And you can play along with him. Okay? So your question was, are you going to ruin your instrument if you take a thumb drive and put it into the instrument and hit audio? No.
I'll be able to play.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So there's no, you won't, when you put a thumb drive into an instrument, there's really no fear on the Lowrys that you could erase anything or corrupt anything. That's actually not true on the Yamaha stuff. You got to be a little bit more careful on the Yamaha stuff, and it's kind of a blessing and a curse in a way, because the reason that you can't really corrupt anything in the Lowry unless you really got into the inner workings of it, which you don't really even have access to. There's a certain series of keys that you have to touch in order to get into the inner workings of the instrument, and I'm not even going to go over that with you because there's no reason for you to do that, and I don't want to teach you something that you could do that could actually do some damage. But the reason that Lowrys are much more stable is because they're not able to be updated or upgraded. You know, their software is set, and unless you basically brought it to the factory or knew someone that worked at the factory, there's no way that they could add on or take away sounds that you have available to you. That's not true on these things. Okay? These are a little bit less stable in that if someone didn't know what they were doing, there's technically a way that you can erase things. Now, I can bring those things back. Okay, that's one of the great reasons to buy an instrument from a dealer, is that if you buy it online and you make a mistake and you erase it, you're in trouble. You get a big expensive box in your house that doesn't work. Okay, but if you buy it from a dealer and God forbid something like that happens, we know how to bring it back. But the reason that they make them that way is that every now and again, Yamaha comes out with an update. You know, if any of you have iPhones, you know, sometimes you get an update, you have to update this app, or you have to update the operating system. Yamaha does that. And these models, for example, when they come out of the box, they come out with the original software. At least the ones that I've gotten come out with the software that was put on them when they were originally made. I think that there's this assumption that when an instrument comes into the store, it was just made the week before. That's not always the case. Sometimes, I mean, if it's a really highly sought out instrument and there's low quantities, but you know, there's oftentimes the likelihood of it having been in a warehouse for a bit. And so when these come in, they operate at about, I want to say about 50 to maybe 65% of the capacity that they are at right now. And so I update them before they go out. I make sure that they have the most current operating system on them with whatever updates or upgrades that they've made. And I don't know that that's true unless you buy it from a music store. I mean, I haven't done that, but very long answer to a very short question. No, you cannot do any damage to your instrument if you're using the MP3. It's actually a really cool feature. Yeah.
One more question. I noticed you've got one of those things in the Yamaha, which
Yes.
apparently you can record over there too. If I were to take that and put it into my Rialto and play it on audio, would I hear?
As long so the question again, I'm going to be repeating everybody's questions because they can hear me, but you know, they can't hear you. So to repeat the question, there's a USB drive on the CVPs. Obviously, the Lowrys have a USB drive as well. As long as something was recorded in MP3, yes. In other words, if I record something in MP3 form or I convert it to MP3 form, and it's true, you can play it in your car. Okay, now you won't be able to. It'll be a literal recording, so you won't be able to change things like tempo. You won't be able to add instruments in. It's like playing a tape cassette of what you're using. But if it's in MP3 form, again, a lot of people have those drives on their dashboard. Some of the new cars. You do it. You put it in your car.
Now, is that in there? That's a flash drive. You told me me, I don't know this stuff.
Yeah.
That's a flash drive. What's the difference between that and an MP3 thumb drive?
So thumb drive and flash drive, same thing. Okay. MP3 and MIDI are just two different systems. You know, it's like everything's language, but English is different than Spanish. Yes, Mark?
John, they often describe the difference between MIDI and MP3 and WAVE. MP3 is a language which describes the music,
Okay.
although it can have recorded tracks in it, but generally so every note in MIDI is like a step in a program.
Right.
You can change it.
Right.
You can make it a different instrument. You can change instrument at every note.
Right.
WAVE, MP3s, so on, are just a recording done on digital recording of
Right,
analog
right.
music.
Yeah. So it's much.
Don't change the volume.
Exactly. You can. That's about all you can do, really. Is that you can manipulate the volume. Yeah. So MIDI is as for those of you out there that couldn't hear Mark, it's changeable. You know, whereas WAVE or MP3 is just literally a recording that's why it's transferable to anything, because it really doesn't have to agree with any sort of program. It just needs to play.
MIDI is actually a program.
Is a program itself. Exactly.
It's a language.
Exactly.
Just like basic.
Right. Right. Any other questions? Go ahead. Page one.
Right. But this is actually well, it might help other people too.
Okay.
But as you know, during class, I get up and I play, and I screw up royally. Now, a half hour at home, I'm playing, and it's beautiful. And I told you I'm going to make a recording of it, and then put it on my stick and play it, and then it will come to play.
Okay.
But my problem is, I keep losing my place. Now, and I try to, when I play, and I try to look a measure ahead so that I know which chord I want to get ready to play.
Yeah.
Is there some kind of a secret or something where, I know there's something wrong up here, but is there some way that you have a way of knowing exactly where you are? I mean, I'm doing fine, then then all of a sudden I lose my place, and then everything just goes.
So
and I can't-
a secret to allow you not to lose your spot while you're playing.
Yeah.
Well, the first step I would think would be to look down at your fingers as little as possible. Okay, so the more your eyes leave the music, the more likely you are to lose your spot. And that's one of the reasons why, as beginners, and I don't know if any of you probably don't do this anymore, but I'm sure that there's one or two of you in this that did this when you started. I have some beginners that is anybody cold, like really cold? This is kind of loud. Would you mind if I kick that off the heat?
And anyone's cold, I'll warm them up. Not getting good.
Okay, I feel like everybody's probably going to hear me a little bit more. It may get chilly. If it does, I'll turn it back on. Okay. I don't keep the heat really warm in here to begin with, but anyhow. So, as I was saying, when beginners start and we start to go over finger placement, one thing that I discourage students from doing is writing a finger number underneath every single note. Because some students do that. So if it's pinky on the G and it goes G, F, E, D, C in succession, they'll write 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 underneath every one of those notes, and then the next series of notes. The issue I find with doing that is that if you're giving yourself a direction, you're going to want to read it. And you're going to want to look down to make sure that that finger is on that key. And then instead of looking down sparingly, you're almost checking your progress from note to note. Okay? I discourage students from doing that. My suggestion with finger placements, putting numbers in or little notes to yourself, put the notes or the numbers in when you have to physically move your hand. You know, if you have to play the same key 7 times in a row with your thumb, is it really necessary to put 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 underneath every one of those notes? I mean, I don't think so. I mean, you could. And I think a lot of students in the interest of trying to be accurate do that thinking they're doing something good. But I think that it leads a lot of students to look down more than they need to. So my suggestion would be figure out the places where your hand has to pick up and move, and I would make a note to myself. I'm always, you want to try to look down at the same point in the song every time you practice it. You know, so if there's a series of notes that you know that you don't need to look down at, you can keep your eyes on the music. Go ahead and do that. And then you'll kind of be ready for, okay, I'm getting to a move. I know my hand's got to go somewhere else. I'm going to have to look down, but I know it's coming. And therefore, I know where to look back to in the music because it's always on line 2 of the first page, or it's always on line 3 of the second page. So you can make a little note to yourself that this is where I look down, and I don't look down anywhere else. So there's only certain spots you could get lost in. You know, it's either this spot on this page or this spot on that page. So you kind of have a way of being ready for the move, and then knowing if, God forbid, I do lose my spot, I know right where to look because this is where I was. I don't know if that helps at all. You know, a little scotch tends to help a little bit as well.
Unfortunately,
But yeah, I mean, it's losing your spot is a very common thing, and it's funny because I have a lot of students say, well, if I just memorize it, then I won't have to worry about losing my spot. And actually, Bill, you're very good at memorizing music. But the tough thing about memorizing it, and I'm speaking from my own personal perspective, is if you're in the middle of the song and you lose your train of thought, you gotta restart.
yeah.
I mean, I do anyways. It's very difficult for me to start in the middle of a song that I have memorized. Okay, where at least if you have the music, you can say, well, all right, I may not know where I am, but I know I'm at least on this page, you know? And so it's not the silver bullet answer. A lot of stuff, well, if I just memorize it, then I don't have to worry about that. Yeah, that's great until you lose your train of thought. And then instead of at least being somewhere where you think you are, you say, okay, I got to go back and restart the whole thing. So that'd be a really easy answer to give. So just memorize it. Just play it enough and memorize it and you won't get lost. Not necessarily a quick fix, unfortunately. Okay.
Slow it down.
Yeah. Slow it down is a big one as well. Let me jump to one of these questions here because there are, what did I say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. The first one here. How do I put a sound on the top and the bottom keyboard on my Lowry Journey? This is from Joyce in North Carolina. So hello, Joyce. I hope you're watching us. So anyways, how to put a sound on the top and the bottom keyboard on a Journey. First of all, it will set itself up to do that. Okay, same thing with an Easy 4, an Easy 10, a Fanfare, an Inspire, a Rialto. Any instrument with 2 levels, a sound will be put on each one. Okay, when you choose a blue button over here, a different sound likely will be put here and here. Okay, so I guess her question is, how do I put my own sounds, I would think, on the top and the bottom keyboard? And the answer obviously lies over on the right-hand side. So I just randomly chose the button that says pop here, and I can see that there is a button over on the right-hand side on the panel that's flashing on and off. It says guitars. And on the upper keyboard, I have, or rather on the other side, it will be on the upper keyboard, I have a button that says vocals, which is not flashing on and off. Okay, the flashing on and off is the second sound that was chosen. Okay, that right now means that second sound is down here. So it says guitar, so I know before I hit anything in terms of a key, I know that down here I'm going to hear a guitar. And there's a jazz guitar. I know I'm going to hear a vocal sound up here. Now I'm also hearing an organ sound because I can see the organ button pressed here. Okay. So if I wanted, let's say, to put the piano on the top keyboard and the trumpet down at the bottom, well, the first thing that I would need to make sure that I did was I'd hit the piano, I'd find the one that I want. Let's say we want the grand piano, so I'm going to maintain that. I'm going to hit the button that says pianos again and hold it down. And while I'm holding it, I'm going to reach over and hit the button that says brass. And the brass button is now flashing on and off. The brass sound is here. Okay, if I wanted it the opposite way, I hit brass and hold that down first. Hit the piano second, the piano's down here. Okay, now I wish that was the end of the lesson. it does get a little bit more involved than that, simply because if it's flashing, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be down on the bottom. Okay? If it's not flashing, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be on the top. Okay? And this is a very important question, because let's say someone's going from an easy 2 or an easy 3 to an easy 4. So they like the 2 levels, they see the advantage of being able to move very quickly from one level to the next, but, and I get this question a lot, they'll say, I remember on my easy 2, I was able to put 2 sounds on in the right hand at the same time on one level. Can I not do that anymore? Because I remember that's how I did it on my easy 2. I hit a button, and I held it down, and I hit the other one, and then I could play both sounds together. Is that not a possibility anymore? The answer is it is a possibility, okay? You would do the same thing that I just did, so you'd hold down one, the second one that you want, you'd hit the second one, so the second one flashes on and off. But then you need to come over to the right side of that section. On the easy 4, the easy 10, it's in the same general area, but they're the same color buttons, they're black. And these buttons are directional. So let's say I wanted the brass to accompany the piano up here. Now what I would need to do is I need to go over into this section called lower right, and it says orchestral, which is where the brass and the piano both are. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that button off. Now one thing that does is it completely removes the split. Now there's no split here, the chords go all the way up to the top. But what it did was it took the sound and it moved it up here. So even though it's flashing, now the piano and the brass are both on the top. Okay? If I turn that button back on that says orchestral, it takes the brass and puts it back here, where it was. Now if I want to take the piano, and I want to put the piano down here with the brass, I go to that same general section, but it says orchestral here under the upper heading, so I'm going to turn that one off. Now, guess what I'm going to have up here? Nothing. Okay, but guess what's down on the bottom? Both of them. Okay, here's the piano and the brass. So you can split them up, or you can combine them together. And that's, I think, where this becomes tricky. If all you had to do was worry about one up here and one down here, and I hold one down and I hit the other one, it'd be a lot easier of an explanation for me. But the fact that you can put 2 sounds on down here or 2 sounds on up here it's a bit more difficult to explain, but it doesn't limit you like it would if you could only put one on one level and one on the other. Okay, so I hope. The tough thing about these questions I'm realizing now is I don't know whether they were clear enough to be a good answer, because I can ask you all. So, Mark, go ahead.
And there's other sounds you can add, like solo and...
Oh, yeah. So that's just the orchestral. You could put on flutes and strings and the solo button, absolutely. And you can decide where you want those as well.
Is there one more button on
There is.
Yeah.
Yep, there is. Just to the right of that. Yep. Yeah.
This may be stupid, but
No, go ahead.
if you have your 2 sounds at the bottom, you still have your chords.
You still have your chords, yes. So if you have, and again, let me just repeat the question. If you have both sounds down here, and let's say nothing up here, do you still have your chords? The answer is yes. Okay. So for someone that, let's say, is transitioning from using an easy 2 or an easy 3 all of a sudden to something with 2 levels, some of those students are more comfortable playing like this. Okay. They almost use the top keyboard as their secondary option. You know, having played organ as long as I have, my primary sound is here and my secondary sound is here. But some students that are used to one level, they're used to playing like that, and they kind of look like this, like their treehouse where they can go up to and get another sound if they want to. I kind of look at it this is my basement, so I play everything up here and then I reach down when I need to, but your chords are still there, yes.
And you can still put another sound on the top. Right?
You can still put another sound on the top as long as it's not from this section. So I can put an organ sound, I can put an ensemble sound, which is kind of like strings. I can go to solo, I can put one of those sounds here, but in this section, they're either split, they're both on one or they're both on the other. And since I can only grab two buttons at a time from here, if they're both on one level, that means neither one is up here. And I can't put a third one from that section up there.
Now I can do the same thing on the Prestige.
You can do the same thing on the Prestige. Yeah. Yes, sir?
Second one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, how about, I'm trying to figure out which one I want more. On the Rialto, and I'm sure on the rest, on the left-hand corner on the bottom, there are 6 buttons.
Okay.
One is the shut off, and I understand that.
Okay.
And then you have 5. Now you have the 6.
Yep.
All right, and up on the number 1 here, okay, I know home is, this is kind of like resets, okay, so that's no problem. Now I come to the ABCs, that's no problem, because
Okay.
that lights up for me. But now I come to the music.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure what that does. I push music and I play and I don't get any results.
Okay. All right. So I'll answer that for you. It's gonna be a much easier answer than you expect. Okay. And I agree with you that I don't know if you're saying this, but this is me saying it. They could have named it something that was a little bit easier to explain. In other words, if you put a button on on an instrument that says music, what does that mean? Does it mean it's going to play music for me? Does it mean I play? Here's what that does. Hit it. Hit the button. Is it on? Hit that button. Okay. Turn it off. Turn it on. Anybody notice anything?
The lights go on and off.
The lights up here.
Oh,
Oh, do that?
Music rack. They probably should have called it music rack.
oh, there's lights up there.
Oh yeah.
Did I pay for lights up there?
You have lights up there, I promise. Yours has lights up there.
America, a great place.
So that is that's what that they probably should have called it music rack lights or something like that, but it's the lights for your music rack.
I never turned it on. I was afraid I would mess it up.
Yeah. On some of the top end Lowrys, there's also a button over there so you can light up your pedals.
Yeah, because I was always pushing the. What the hell
Yeah,
does this do?
yeah.
I'm looking down here, but.
Yeah, it's your music. I can understand why you probably couldn't tell what that button was doing. Can you tell me? I don't know why I just turned this off. Can you tell me? You don't have to keep standing. You can sit back down if you want. Can you tell me why I feel like you probably didn't even realize that that's what that did?
You never told me.
No.
Play in the daytime.
Well, that could be one.
Yeah.
Bill, you think of a reason?
I think because the music itself covers the light.
So
Yeah.
you're right. On a Rialto, you have an extended music rack that comes over here.
Yeah.
Okay, that doesn't have lights on it.
No.
So when your music is here,
It's behind.
it's in front of the lights.
Yeah.
Okay, that music rack with the lights is the one behind it. So you'd have to take off your extra music rack, which they put there because it's a little bit easier to see. But if you're laying, 3 or 4 pages across that, you're not going to see lights back here. Okay, so that's why I can almost guarantee that's why you couldn't tell what it did, because you couldn't even see the lights, because you're used to seeing your music in front of them.
I see the light on
You see the light now. You
now
can see clearly now.
I see that
The light is there.
Now we come to the other 3.
The other 3 buttons.
Right. Now you push number 1 and style comes up.
Okay.
What does that do?
Okay. So what Bert's referencing is on some of the higher end Lowrys, next to your power, you have 3 buttons that say custom, and they are exactly that. Basically what those are buttons that you can assign certain feature screens to. In other words, when you hit your feature button, you can scroll through all of these different, what we call pages. Okay, and when you get to the page you want, you hit select, then you can scroll through things basically on that page, and you can go up and down. Well, what they put on those 3 buttons, they're changeable, but what they put on those 3 buttons are 3 very commonly used pages, okay? And they're very, very helpful. For example, let's say that I hit this button that says gospel, all right? Now, I get this screen that shows me the first page of gospel rhythms, and then I can go to the next page and I have more options there. Now, I want to get to my tempo. I want to see what's on these numeric buttons here. So if I hit number 3, I don't know what's on number 3 because I don't have that screen. Okay, I have to hit clear. What tempo is it at? I don't know what tempo it's at. What key is it in? Have I transposed? I mean, the buttons aren't lit, but I don't know. Okay, so what do I need to do? I need to hit feature, right? Okay, so I hit feature. And now I have the tempo. I have what's on button number 3. I can see my key hasn't changed. It shows me the name of the beat here. Now, let's say that I am in the middle of a song and I wanted to see what other gospel rhythms there were. What would I have to do?
Have to go to gospel.
And I'd have to turn it off, wouldn't I?
Yeah.
Because the only way that I would be able to see that screen with all of the other gospel rhythms is to turn it off and turn it right back on.
Right.
Now I can see that screen again. What if I'm in the middle of a song? I don't turn off gospel.
That's it.
Okay. So what do? I got these custom buttons over here. Okay. When I hit custom number 1, guess what comes up? The gospel styles. Without me having to touch this button at all. So it brings up that page. Without me having to turn the gospel off and turn it back on. So if I'm in the middle of a song and I want to do a little bit of a, let's say a gospel compilation of songs. I want to play 3 or 4 of them in a row, like a medley. And I say, oh, I want to change to another gospel beat without stopping. Well, if this screen isn't there, I can't do that because I'd have to turn this off and turn it right back on. Okay. Number 2. Number 2 right now is set with the next setup option, which is on your Rialto as well as on the Inspire. You can use your foot switches on the left and the right hand side of your volume control to change your numbered buttons here. Okay, so if I go to here and I hit right, I can hit left as well. Now right now it's on number 3. So if I kick my foot to the right, now it's on number 4. Now it's on number 5. Now it's back on number 4. Now it's on number 3. And that's what that screen does. So it gives you the ability to change setups without having to take your fingers off the keys to do it. Okay. My favorite one is the 3rd one, at least the way that it comes from the factory. I like number 3 a lot because what number 3 does is it shows me in one screen what's on every one of these numbers. Okay. That way, I don't have to go through each one of those numbers either during the song. So if I say, oh, I'd like to change to a guitar, and I'm right in the middle of a piece, I don't know which one of these numbers gives me a guitar, and I don't even know which level it's on. Well, I know that right now, there's not a guitar on any of them. So, but that's good. It's good to know. I mean, I know that that's not there. So I don't have to spend my time going to look for it. Okay. I can also, let's say I give you a suggested arrangement. I say, when you get to this point in the song, go to the trumpet. When you get to this point in the song, go to the clarinet. By using that screen, you can probably save yourself from doing a little memorizing. Because you can say, oh, when I hit number 6 on the bottom, there's a clarinet. That's all I need to do. When I want to get to the trumpet, it's on number 4 on the top, or whatever the case may be. And so that screen, I like that screen a lot. That number 3, I probably use more than the other 2.
I do too.
Yeah, that's a really, really helpful thing. But you can, as I said, you can customize those screens if you don't like those 3. I think those 3 are probably the 3 that I would just leave on there, but you don't have to. You can put whatever on there you like. Yeah.
I use that one all the time. If you press style setup, you're gonna get another 20 instruments, and if you press vintage, you get another 20. So you get a choice of 60 instrument setups that way.
You get a lot more than that.
Yeah.
You know, a lot more than that. So Marsha was saying, when you go through the numbers, you get top and bottom. You actually get, if we want to be technical about it, you get 22. Because you get 1 without any of the numbers, top and bottom.
I mean, I get one.
So in other words, there's something on the top and the bottom keyboard before you hit any numbers.
Right.
So you have style setup, we'll call it 0,
Yeah.
plus 10, times 2.
Oh yeah.
So that's technically 22.
Well, actually, then you get 63.
So you'd get 22, 44, 66, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But, so her answer was, well, yeah, if I turn the style setup off, I get another, we'll say 22, and if I hit vintage, I get another 22. And I said, there were more than that. And then I didn't just mean those extra 6.
Yeah.
Okay? If you go into your category setups, however many of those you have. So if I go over here, category setups, and I chose Latin, let's say. Now, here's another 22.
Yeah.
If I go to the categories and I choose country, there's another 22. You know, modern's another 22, and nostalgic's another 22, and so you have a lot, okay? The same really goes, I know you don't have that button over here that shows you in this screen because it's smaller, but that's what these categories do. So this has 8 numbers, so you figure there's 9 with the style setup, so 9 times 2, okay? So when you go to the symphonic and the jazz and the country and the more button over here, these also affect those numbers. So you have a tremendous amount of preset arrangements. I mean, just looking at the Inspire alone, 7,200 complete sound setups once you add them all up. So what's 7,200 divided by 365? How many years can you play a different sound before you run out of them? I mean, that's a lot.
Is that the same thing with the Prestige?
Yeah, Prestige has got a comparable amount. Yeah, same general idea, and you can hit that same button. You hit that same button, you look in the screen, and it will show you what's on every one of those numbers.
What about the fanfare?
So the fanfare has different sounds on each one of those numbers, but your screen's the size of this one, so it can't in one fell swoop show you everything. But what it does do, which I think is very beneficial, is when you hit the number, it does show you what's on the current top and bottom keyboard. Okay, so if I hit number 6 right now, it says 50s guitar and 60s organ. I haven't touched a key right now, but I know there's the guitar and there's the organ. Okay. All right. Let me go to another question here. This is Grace. Hi, Grace. I like that name. From Long Island. How do I split my keyboard on my Yamaha Clavinova CVP 705? Okay, so I actually did a video on this not too long, it was longer ago than I think, but one of the tricky things about the one-level instruments, and I think it's a big misconception because it's very easy to set it up to do this, is if I'm playing on one level, I've limited myself by not having this top level to be able to go up and down without stopping to hit a button, okay? These still give you that opportunity, but what you do is you create what we call a third split point. Okay, so you have your split point for your chords, which is obviously, you know, where the left hand would play down here. And then the way it's set right now, these are all notes, whatever the notes are. So if I go to, let's choose a beat here. Okay, let me see. What am I looking for here? Let's go. Pick a good one here. How about Blueberry Hill? All right, so while this is loading up, you're going to, oh, there we go. Okay, just choose that one here. All right, so there's a piano on the right-hand side of this instrument. There's a split point. The split point's right here, right now. I can move that up or down, but anything down is going to be a chord. Okay, so here's a beat. Okay, so that's what that light is reflecting. And again, I can move my split this way. I can move it that way, just, you know, like you can. Okay, but now let's say that I want to play the right hand. And I say, you know, when I get to the middle of the song, I want to make it sound like something different, but I don't want to have to hit a button to do that. So basically what you would do, in the screen here, you can see it says left, main, or layer. So I'm going to go to left. And when I choose left, you're going to see something else come in, okay? And it says it's actually showing, you know, that it's all the way down. So basically what I would want to do is I want to go to split fingering, and if you can see this here, it put the left hand and the style split right in the same place. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move that over a little bit. So I'm going to move the left over this way. Oh, let me leave the style though. Oh, the style is staying. Okay, yes. Okay, that's what am I doing here? Okay, I want you off. I want you on. Okay. All right. So you can see there's two lights here now? Okay. This is the chord. This is one sound. That's another one. Okay, so I got my chord here. Sound here. And then I have a split there. So basically, what it's giving me the opportunity of doing is playing sometimes here, playing sometimes here. You can decide how much space you need for each hand, so you can, increase or decrease the amount of space between the two splits. But it's basically giving someone the opportunity to play it almost like an organ. Okay, and then you can save them if you want it. It's a little bit cumbersome, to be honest with you, to get used to it. But once you do, it really allows these to play almost exactly the same way that you would play on an organ. I mean, that was one of my main concerns. And I didn't know these did this before these came in. That was one of my main concerns. I'm used to 2 levels. I know the advantages of them. And I said, this is going to be a tough sell. 1 level. You want to make a change, you always got to hit a button. You don't. Okay? And when you do have to hit a button, just like on that, you can use your foot. So you can set things up. So figure this has, in this case, this has 8 buttons here. I can put a sound in each little quadrant here. So, it's set up very similar to an organ with the top and the bottom. You just keep your hand on 1 level. Okay? Yeah.
I was wondering if she was mentioning, can you change the chord button to go down?
You can. Yeah. If you don't want your chord, the chord's pretty high right now. The chord's just under middle C right now.
It's under.
Okay. But if I want to bring it down, I can bring it down wherever I want. It's just a matter of moving the split down. Yeah, you can put it wherever you want
How
to.
do you do that?
Same exact way.
Yeah.
The same way. You just move it down. See it moving?
Oh, yeah.
See the light?
Yeah.
Okay. Now it's just chords. So you can go down as far as you want or up as far as you want. Yeah. It's really interesting with the split, which I've seen happen in a couple videos that I've watched demonstrating this instrument, is where they have the split, you can kind of put it in the middle. I've seen instances where a student and a teacher were playing simultaneously, but with 2 different sounds. So one was like the piano, the other was the strings. They were kind of playing a little bit of a duet, something similar to that, with 2 benches, and the teacher's up here and the students down there, or vice versa. So it's kind of a cool thing. Another live question. How are we doing on time?
Wait, you got
That's
10
okay.
minutes,
Okay.
so, and I have to make the decision.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Because I'm gonna haunt you with a.
Go ahead.
All right, John, setting up.
Yes.
Setting up. Okay, I'm having a little difficulty when I'm setting up. I'm finding that you cannot use the style setup
Mm-hmm.
and the category setup at the same time.
Correct.
Because if you do, it shuts one off.
Correct.
So if you are setting up, you're trying to, and also it will also if you're trying to memorize something,
Mm-hmm.
and you decide that I don't like the style that is given, so I want to go to the style setup, and I like that much better. I want to memorize it.
Yep.
So okay, so I hit the memorize. I hit A number, and I put the number that I want. All right.
Yep.
Now I have set up the category setup that I want.
Yep.
And I want to change it to the reality. Well, just the reality setup or the other setup.
Okay.
The style setup.
Okay.
All right. Well, when I do that, I turn either turn the category setup off, or I turn off the reality, or I turn off the A button, and I don't know if I don't think I can memorize it.
Okay. So let me start out answering the first part of your question,
Confusing.
which is you can't use style setup and category setup at the same time. The answer is yes, you cannot do that. Okay. The reason you can't do that is because they both do exactly the same thing. They both do exactly the same thing.
Oh.
Okay. One is going to set up your numbers for you based upon the style you've chosen. The other is going to set up the numbers for you based upon the category of music, I guess, that you've chosen. So, for example, they do exactly the same thing. They're like, if you want to think of it this way, in a way, they're not style setups, but they're like additional style setups. So, if you hit style setup and you're using a gospel song, you're going to get gospel instruments on those numbers, right? If I go over to the categories and hit Latin in the category setup, gospel's still going to stay on, so it's still a gospel band, but on those numbers, what's going to be there? Latin sounds. So you're going to have a Latin gospel type song. You can't use them at the same time because they both do the same thing. They both set up those numbers. Okay. Now, to the second part of your question/explanation, you have your style set up on, and you want to save it to a number. So you have style set up, you found a setting that you like, and then you want to memorize it. My first question to you would be, why? And I guess I'm not necessarily looking for you to answer the question, because you can do it if you want to, but here's my reasoning, okay? They put the style setup buttons on there, the options, so that you don't have to memorize.
Well,
That's the whole idea, is that, when you go to style setup, any one of those numbers is always going to give you that sound. So, I mean, the only advantage, I think, is if you wanted to put them in numerical order so that you don't have to play number 1, number 8, number 2, number 6, number 4, or if you want to save yourself from having to set up the instrument when you first sit down. So in other words, you don't want to hit gospel. You don't want to bring it to 110 beats per minute. You don't want to hit, the number that you do. You can just go A1 and you get that. But that's really the only advantage to me in memorizing a style setup.
well, because now I want to do 2 different styles. So I may want to start with a waltz, and then I want to change it to a
Okay, and that's fine.
all right, so that's where I would use the memorizing.
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah, that's possible.
But so if I
So what you'd have to do is you would have to set up each one individually. So you'd have to, let's say you wanted to play a standard song, you really liked what was on number 5 in the style setup, and you said, okay, I want to move that over right at the beginning. So you're going to hit standards, you're going to make sure your style setup's on, you're going to go number 5, then you're going to go memorize A1, let's say, okay? And then you say, okay, well, the next song I have is a waltz. So you hit waltz, your style setup, you're going to notice, is still on. Okay, so you're going to hit waltz, your style setup is on, and then you say, I really like what's on waltz number 7. So then you just go number 7, and you go memorize A2. Now, when you go to A1, you're going to have standards on A1 with what was on 5. And then when you go to number 2, the waltz is going to turn on with what was on 7.
But what I like to do, though, I'm weird, when I set a style, I like to be able to play all 10 presets, and that's what I'll do for variety of.
So you'd have to set up all 10. If you want to jump back and forth between styles, you'd have to set up all 10. In other words, if you want to set the first 3 buttons with gospel, and the next 3 buttons with Latin, and the next 3 buttons with waltz, you have to do that yourself.
Well,
I mean, I like to use all 10 buttons as well, but that's the beauty of the style setup, is that all 10 buttons have sounds based upon that style. So I don't do any memorizing at all. I wouldn't do that on here either. I'd say, okay, well, I want to play a ballad. I'm going to use all 10 numbers, or in this case, 8 numbers. I'm going to use all 8 numbers, top and bottom. And then when I go to smooth, I'm going to use all 8 numbers, top and bottom. They're different sounds. If I go to waltz, I can use all 8 numbers, top and bottom. Those are different numbers, and it has nothing to do with memorizing.
but if I'm playing a song consecutively, or I'm breaking the song up between two different styles.
Mhm.
I have to.
Then you'd have to memorize them all
I have to.
because you're using a different style.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Is how do I memorize? I would like a waltz. I would hit the memorize the waltz. All right, and I would hit. Then I would go to memorize the rumba or something for the next one.
Now, do you want to keep the same sounds but different beat? Is that what you want to do?
Right.
Okay.
And then I'll probably use different sounds too, because whichever would go with that rumba beat, it would be like two different.
Well,
sounds.
I have a different answer then, because if you want to use the same sounds, so let's say that you want to play with a couple different styles, but you want to use the piano for all of them. Okay, let's just say, I'm just giving you a for instance, okay? So I want to use the piano for 3 different styles. What you do is you would hit memorize A, okay, and the number, all right? And then in the screen, it asks you 2 questions. One is, do you want me to remember the style that you've chosen? And what you'd put there is no. Because that way, when you go to A1, you can go to another blue button over on the side, and that sound will stay. So you can use the same sound with multiple arrangements.
But wouldn't I use like the A button then for that one style, then the B button for the
Not necessarily. I mean, the only reason that I would go from A to B or for B to C is if I filled up all of the numbers on A first. So I'd fill up A 1 through 10, and then if I want to use save more, well then I'd go to B 1 through 10, and then C 1 through 10.
John,
That's what I do.
Yeah, well, that sounds like you're doing it right then.
John, quick question.
Yeah.
The category setups, they don't do rhythms though, do they?
No, they're just music. They're just instruments.
So you set your rhythm, and then you can change the category.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
you have different
and that saves you from all of these options are trying to save you from having to memorize. You know, that's why there are 7,200 complete music setups set up for you, meaning no memorizing involved unless you want to really make some intricate changes. Okay, this has got 1,614 setups.
That's all.
That's a pretty big jump between those two. I actually thought it was going to be a lot higher. That would be a lot lower, but still, yeah, it's a lot. You know, so figure there's more than 1,600 different ways that you can play this before you even have to delve into setting it up yourself. Okay, so setting it up yourself is really more from a boutique standpoint that you want it a specific way, specific to you. Okay, yeah.
Well, this is changing the.
That's right.
Is there any way you can just get a drum solo on playing
Yeah.
without all the?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Well, there's a couple of different ways you can do it on here or on any of the Lowrys. Actually, I'm just sitting in front of this one, but I can come over to the Easy 3. You just play a smash chord once you've got a beat going. So you put a beat on. You play 3 notes in the left hand, all consecutive, so they have to be white and black included. You just get a drummer.
Can you change the drummer?
You can change a drummer if you would change a style. Okay, on here that's how you would do that. Now on yours, you have a button that says, where is it? Drum variation. And you have drum only, which I think is exactly what you're looking to have it do. So what this does is if I choose a beat, I hit drum only. Now the advantage to that is that my left hand actually becomes notes. They're not very loud, I probably have to turn them up. But I don't have to do a smash chord. And then if I want to change the pattern that the drummer is using, I don't necessarily only have to go to another blue button. I can just simply hit drum variation. Now I can use that with the whole band too. Okay, so that gives you the ability to just turn the drums on, but not only just turn the drums on, vary the pattern that the drummer's using. Yes, Mark?
Under more, there's some drums too. You can do different notes, different drums.
Well, yeah, if you want to turn the keys to a drum
Play
set.
the drums.
Yeah, if you want to play the drums yourself, yeah. Yeah. All right, I'm going to take one more question here, but let me answer one more question here as well. That's going to leave me two. So I'm sorry, Joe from Los Angeles and Jeff from Dallas. We will take those first next time, I promise. But I got to get to Ann from Lincoln because she actually takes lessons here. Can you explain the golden harp? Yes. So the golden harp is a sound that starts on the fanfare. It is included on the Journey, on the Rialto, on the Inspire. So the golden harp is a button all the way over on the left-hand side, and it gives you an arpeggio, essentially. And what an arpeggio is a broken chord. It's a chord that goes up and down the keys in the left hand. And I like to use it. A lot of students like to use it with a beat, and it sounds good with some beats. I like to use it without a beat. I tend to use the easy button, and then I find that the golden harp is a nice way of varying the way the easy button sounds, because your easy button chord can kind of be a little boring, okay? And so if I'm playing, you know, I might, we'll go back to Christmas here for a moment.
What's with the golden harp? I won't play any more Christmas music for you there.
Okay, it's back. Now you can decide whether you want the harp to go up. This says up and down, so I can decide this is down only. Okay, I have up only. I have one that says virtuoso. It does kind of a little bit of a snowflake feel to it, I agree. You can decide how fast or slow it goes. That was a question that came up recently during a private lesson, is my tempo controls the golden harp. So if I turn my golden harp on, and I bring my tempo down, you can really slow it down, okay? And I like it because it kind of gives me a little bit of a way to time myself also, okay? And it knows the notes to play by the chord I'm playing. So I have to play a chord. And on some instruments, for example, this would be starting on the Inspire here, you can decide whether you want it to be a harp or not. So you can make it other sounds. You can make it a piano, you can make it a tuba, you can make it the barking dogs if you don't know if you want to do that, but you could. Okay, yeah.
You could do that on the Rialto?
Mm-hmm.
I never even tried.
Yep. Yep. So once you choose the golden harp here on the screen, okay, it gives you the pattern. Okay, so up and down, up only, down only, virtual, all these things, and then you can go over here to rate and sounds, and you can decide the sound that you want to use as well. So right now this says bells, so if I put this on and now it says bells, I should get a bell sound with the harp. Okay, and I can scroll again to make it really anything that I want. Now with this one it's a little tricky because you gotta scroll, but here's the golden harp. That doesn't sound right good. That was a cow. Try the dog. So the dogs get progressively bigger and smaller.
Yeah.
I mean, you're ever going to do that? Probably not, but I mean, you can.
I thought it was a monkey laughing.
Yeah, well, could be. All right, so let's do one more. You're welcome. Let's do one more. It's 12:04, but let's do one more live question. Anybody? I will let you go if no one else has one, Bert. I just want to make sure that.
I know it.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, this is an easy one.
Go ahead.
A sound. Can you put a sound like the barking dog on the pedal?
Yes,
How do you do that?
it's a good question.
I thought so.
So, if you wanted to do that, you'd have to go over here to pedal sounds. Okay, so you have an orange button over here that says pedal sounds. And when you turn it on or turn it off, it was already on, so I'm going to turn it back on here. I can see that it says bass electric deep, which means that right now there is an electric bass that is coming from these pedals. But if I wanted to put something else there, I can scroll, or I can type in a number. So let's say on the bass, I wanted a piano. Well, piano's easy, it's number 1. So what I would do is I would go back to my home screen, I would go to keypad, I know piano's number 1, and I'm gonna reach over, I'm gonna hit pedal sounds. Now, on these pedals, got a piano.
You can change the octave of that too.
You can change the octave of it as well. Yep. You can make it a much deeper piano if you want. And one of the interesting things is when you do that, and this is something that is a lot of students wonder about, because they say, "Oh, that's great. I can put a piano sound on the pedals. I don't play the pedals anyways." So I mean, you can put whatever you want on there. I don't push them. So that sound gets incorporated in the background. So you have your background that's playing. Well, if there's a bass player in the background, if your easy button is on, it's going to make that chord play bass-wise with whatever you put there. And if there's a beat, it's going to jump back and forth like the bass would as well. Any other questions? Okay, 12:06. All right. How do we do?
Very good. I
Good.
have one more, quick.
How quick?
Very quick.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm having trouble, the middle C.
Yep.
On the top and bottom. Is it the middle C right under the...
No, it's not. So they are staggered. And that's true with all Lowrys. Okay. Your middle C on the top keyboard is always 1 octave below as compared to the middle C on the lower keyboard, and that's simply because the lower keyboard has to share space with the left hand. Okay? And the way that you're able to tell that, not very easy to tell if you're using 2 different sounds, but if you put the same sound on both levels, it's very noticeable. Okay? So let's say I choose a beat that I know that there's going to be the same sound on both levels. Well, if I hit this key here, here's a piano. Different piano, but it's the same tone. That's a little bit more mellow sounding, but it's the same key. These 2 are not. Okay, so when you put the same sound on each level, it's you notice it right away. If one was a clarinet and one was a trombone, you probably wouldn't notice it quite that easily. And you can line them up on top of one another. You can either move this one up or you can move that one down. But they're not set to do that. And again, the reason is because this hand, they want to give you room for the chord.
The upper is always an octave above the
Lower.
Lower.
The upper key, because the upper keyboard, don't forget, doesn't have to share space with the left hand.
Okay.
So they put the upper keyboard middle C here to give you more option keys up here. They put the middle C on the lower keyboard, 8 keys to the right, to give you more room for your left hand so your hands don't hit each other. Okay, but that can change. I mean, you have an octave down button over here, which you can manipulate. You can change the octave, but naturally, that's how it's set.
You can also change the chords too. Right?
Absolutely. Yep, you can change your chords as well. I feel like we could probably stay here for a lot longer, but we're not going to. We
Why
will
not?
be doing.
You having fun?
I am having fun, but I don't want to monopolize your whole day. Well, thank you for coming. I am going to be, doing this, progressively as the months go on, and we're going to have some new equipment that we're going to be working on pretty soon. And once I turn this camera off, I can give you a little bit of a preview of that stuff because it's kind of under wraps still. So for those of you that aren't here, I'm sorry, you're not going to be able to see this, but we will be doing again this next month. And thanks for coming. Thanks for watching. And again, Joe and Jeff, I will get to your questions next time. Okay?
Good. I have a comment.
Yeah.
Wait a minute,
What,
he's
to
gonna
what?
shut the thing.
Ooh, you have to shut it off first.
How do we shut it off here?